Hey, I'm Jeff and welcome back to another video. Did you know that you can grow a pothos plant in two different ways? Now, the conditions in which they grow are identical, but the way you grow them produces drastically different results. So let's check it out. The most common way you'll see a pothos is in a big, beautiful, luscious, full basket like this, and they are typically grown as a trailing plant. Now, the alternative is something like this. It is a single stem pothos grown up a support stake. Now, whether that is a moss pole or whether that is a wood plank, but the reason why you'd want to grow them up a support system is to get larger leaves. And as a comparison, you can see the leaf size difference. Typically over time, when a trailing plant continues to grow, so new leaves come out, if it doesn't latch onto a support system, the leaves get smaller over time. So you can see some of the older leaves are larger and the newer ones are smaller. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this method. It's simply whichever that you choose. If you want a nice trailing plant off of a shelf or something like that, then this is a beautiful option. If you want to get larger leaves and fill up a nice wall like this, then this is an option that you should consider as well. Here's an example of a marble queen pothos that I have growing up a wood support system. It is pretty much as tall as my IKEA cabinet, and these leaves are massive and they're absolutely gorgeous. This one, it's all green, so I don't know, I think we're gonna be getting alternating leaves, green and variegated, but you can see right here, all of these little aerial roots have grown onto the plank. I think this is the coolest part about growing plants on planks are these little aerial roots. Don't worry about this. There's just a little bit of sawdust, but these big chunky roots, they latch on and secure the plant to the wood. These plants grow in different locations, but like I said, they have the exact same conditions pretty much. Now, the first thing and probably the most important for any houseplant is light. You want to make sure that it gets sufficient light. This one is the variegated global green, so it's probably going to need a little bit more light than say just a regular green variety. Now, anywhere between like 200 to 500 foot candles would be sufficient. I just have a little light meter right at this area. It's getting almost 300 foot candles, so around that 270, 280. This marble queen I am growing right over there. The leaves are probably about that height and it's getting around 360 foot candles. So in that 200 to 500 foot range is perfect for these plants. The watering's a little bit different with a moss pole. What I typically do is I take it over to my bathroom. I have a garden hose in my basement. I will spray off the entire moss pole as well as water the soil when it's absolutely bone dry. I do the same thing with the trailing plant. I take it over to my bathroom and I spray it down. The only difference being is that the roots will grow into the moss as well as the soil. So the moss is an extension of the growing medium. Otherwise, these get an absolutely soaking. I just drench the pot till it comes out to the bottom of the drain hole, but I won't water it again until these are pretty much, I would say like 95% dry. And for all of my houseplants, especially the ones in larger pots like my Monstera back there, I use a wood skewer to determine whether it needs to be watered or not. So I will push it down to the bottom of the pot. I'll let it sit there for a few seconds. If there is any moisture or soil sticking to the skewer, then it does not need to be watered. So I like to put my finger right at the level of the soil, and you can see there's soil on the stick pretty much right at the top here. So I just water this plant, so that's why there is soil on the stick, and it does feel wet as well. So that's how I tell whether these plants need to be watered or not. This plant is still in the original soil that I bought it from. It looks like a nice chunky mixture. It's got some chunky bits as well as perlite. This I use a VeryPlants aeroid mix. It has some wood bark. It's got some leca. It's just a nice airy mixture. You want to make sure that there's good airflow to the roots when growing either type of plant. Now for fertilizer, you can see those little green balls. Those are slow release fertilizer, and that's kind of what I've been using for some of my potted plants. This is what I bought off of Amazon. It's just an indoor-outdoor slow release fertilizer. For this one, when I water it in the bathroom, I will also drench the moss pole in super thrive. So I mix a small amount, I think it's like 1 ml in 1 liter of water, and then I will water the moss pole so that the roots in the moss pole as well as the soil get nutrients and grow nice and strong. Here I have another example. This is a Mandula pothos that is growing as a trailing plant. It's got some absolutely beautiful variegation. And then I have one that is growing on a moss pole. So again, it depends on what you want or how you want the plant to grow, whether it is a nice full bushy trailing plant or whether it's a climbing plant. One way is not better than the other. It's simply what you prefer. Now there are a couple things that I don't like about the trailing plant. One of them being, if you have a pest issue, which this one has had thrips, it's really difficult to treat every single leaf. This one's not bad, but when you start getting into sizes like this, it can be really difficult to treat every leaf, especially the underside, as well as like all the little nooks and crannies. So it can be very difficult to treat if you have a pest issue, whereas if you have one plant like this or one stem growing like this, it's easy to spray off and it's easy to treat with like an insecticidal soap or some sort of pest killing spray. Now I brought in another example plant. This is a reverted Epiprenum pinnatum yellow flame. It's growing on the moss pole here, but you can see there is a section of the stem that is leafless. Now when you grow trailing plants, that's one of the common complaints is over time you end up with a balding or a bald plant. And both plants, regardless of whether it's growing like this or whether it's trailing over time, whoops, dropped my pencil, they will lose older leaves. And that's what's happened right here. You can see there's sections of the stem that are leafless, and eventually you'll have a bare area on top. The same thing goes for if you grow a plant up a support system. Now there's a couple ways that you can fix this, one of them being pruning. If you take a cutting of the stem like that, normally what will happen is if you make a cut in between two nodes, it'll activate nodes lower along the stem, and I'll show you an example right here on the global green, pardon me. This right here, you can see it was either snapped off or it was cut off, and you can see that little point is a new leaf growing out of an activated node, and you can see there's one down there as well. So there is two new stems branching from where that leaf was pruned, and they probably pruned it to propagate it further. So, there's a crusty leaf. Let's take that out. That stem's actually dead. So I'm just trying to see if there's any other examples in there, but that is a prime example of what happens when you prune a pothos. It activates nodes lower along the stem like that. So this will be a whole new stem, and same with this little green nub right there. I did prune this one here as well. So you can see this is where I made a cut. See if it'll focus. That's where I made the cut, and this is the branch that it produced. Now, one method that I've done in the past to make a bushy trailing pot again is to take multiple individual node cuttings, root them in water, and once they grow roots, you basically clump them all together, stick them in a pot, and then you'll end up with something like this. Now, I've seen people simply wrap in a vine like that, and they will put like a little bobby pin or paper clip and pin it down so that these roots will grow into the soil. Now, I've never been a huge fan of that, and it really hasn't worked for me, except I did it with this one right here. It has a node that has been activated. It grew this new stem, and it's actually rooted in there. So I'm pulling up on the root or on the stem there, and it's actually rooted in the pot. This has never really worked for me. I don't know what I was doing wrong or what was going on, but this is the first time something like this has ever been, I guess, successful. So I won't say not to do it, but I really haven't had good success with it. But I'm going to try it again with this vine right there and see if it grows down into the soil again. So that kind of filled in this little kind of gap, I guess you can call it. So we'll see if it roots and produces new growth over time. Now for the ones growing on a moss pole or a wood plank, you can do the same thing, and it's simply a chop and prop. This one is on 2 moss poles right now, and as it grows up the moss pole, here's the top extension piece. You can simply make a cut along the stem, take that top piece, put it back in the pot. You can actually keep the bottom portion as well, because when you make a cut, like say around here, and take the top cutting, there will be nodes lower along the stem here that will be activated, and they will grow out new branches or new stems, whatever you want to call them. This is actually my second go around with the Global Green. It for whatever reason, it didn't grow well for me last time, but I do want to take one cutting out from this plant, and I want to put it on a wood support stake. And you might be asking, why is this all burnt up? It is charred because in one of my previous videos, I kind of got roasted saying that I didn't protect or seal the bottom of the plank. And I used this as an example piece. I took it out in my backyard. I made a fire and I burnt this. So it got a little too crispy. It got out of hand. I burnt the legs. This is the part that's going to go in the soil. When you char a piece of wood, it's supposed to help with rot resistance. So that's why I did it for this one. This is my revolutionary plank system. This little cutout right here. When you attach an extension piece, this little cutout is my rooting window. I put a container of moss on the back, and that way once the plant grows up the plank, the roots will grow into the moss. And when I do a chop and prop, I can have the bottom section. When I put it back in the pot, it'll have its own root system. So I'll show you an example over here. So back to this one over here. Here's my little rooting window. The plant grew into the moss. There will be roots in the moss. So when I cut the top portion, then it'll have an established root system. If you just simply cut anywhere along the stem here and place these aerial roots, these anchoring roots in soil, they will pretty much rot, just because these anchoring roots are not the same as soil roots. So you want soil roots so that you can continue to get larger leaves after you do the chop and prop. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just gonna quickly take this one out of the pot. I only want to isolate one stem. I don't even want to take it out. So I want a section that isn't too long, and that is a top section. So right there, this one just plucked right out. So I'm simply going to place this right back in the pot. Holy, it's got a lot of little green fertilizer balls. So they wanted this thing to grow. So there, pretty much unchanged, undamaged. It's going back on the shelf. Initially, I had grabbed this pot, but since it has just a very small root system, it only has one root, I'm gonna take a smaller pot just because I don't want there to be a massive volume of soil. So now I'm just going to size this up quickly here. And the reason why you want small cuttings, if you don't want like one cutting that takes up the entire plank, you want a small plant that as each new leaf grows, it will get larger, like as long as it attaches to the plank. So I'm just going to size it up like that. So you can see those little white juicy aerial roots. Those are what you want in contact with the wood. This is the soil that I'm going to use. So you can see just how chunky this is. It just provides nice airflow to the roots. I do have a discount code down in the description if you want to try it out. And now all I'm going to do is take the plank. I'm going to hold it at the top. I place the plank pretty much at the back of the pot like that, angled slightly backwards, because over time as the plant grows it's going to want to pull the plank forward. So just slightly angled backwards, and I'm just going to fill in all of the soil, and then I'll give it a good watering. And of course you want to use your pencil to push around the soil, making sure all the gaps are filled. And you want this so that the plank is stable and doesn't flop over. Here's the finished product. This is what I like right there. That juicy little white aerial root. that will latch on to the plank quite quickly. And I think in the next like couple leaves, it'll latch on nicely and then it'll start to size up. Now there are these little holes in the wood plank, you can see strategically placed. They are for directional support. So as the plant grows up the plank, sometimes it likes to veer off to the side. I simply use these little wood dowels. As the plant grows, now you can see the stem should remain on this side. Then I'll place another one up here as well, and it'll keep it in the middle of the plank. That way it doesn't grow off to the edge, because then it pretty much becomes detached and you lose that secured stem, and it's a little bit tough to get it back onto the plank. You'll have to detach it and you might end up with smaller leaves. So this global green is a green on green variegation, and I absolutely love it. Hopefully this one does a little bit better than the first one that I had. I enjoy growing these plants by both methods, but I slightly prefer the vertical plank system. But the trailing plant is absolutely beautiful, especially on a shelf. It's just, there's nothing like seeing a cascading plant, and I've had many over the years. But let me know down in the description which method you prefer, or which ones you like to grow or have the better success with. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you have any other comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching my videos. Take care, everyone. Bye.